Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at She's Yours for the Taking, a man's guide to the seduction and sexual enchantment of women.
Oh, wow.
Now, before anyone gets the wrong idea, this isn't about agreeing with everything the author says.
Right.
It's more about breaking down the book's arguments and techniques, even some of the more controversial ones,
Yeah,
to see kind of where the author is coming from.
I see.
So think of it more like a critical analysis, with you all part of the conversation.
That's great.
The author really leans into his own personal experiences to establish his credibility, especially from his younger years.
Yeah, he doesn't try to come across as some expert with all the answers.
Right.
It's more like someone who's, gone through a lot and learned some things along the way.
Yeah, it's almost like he's using self-deprecation to kind of disarm the reader.
Yeah.
He talks about these almost comical misadventures, like
Right.
wanting to fight a guy over a girl, even getting injured while trying to sneak back into his house drunk. He's laying it all out there, flaws and all. Do you think that approach works?
It's definitely a unique way to connect with readers, especially those who might be feeling insecure or unsure of themselves.
Right.
There's that sense of camaraderie in those shared experiences,
Yeah.
a feeling of like we're all in this together. But it also raises the question of whether relying solely on personal anecdotes is enough to establish expertise.
Right. So it's one thing to share your story, but it's another to offer advice based solely on those experiences. Let's dig into some of his key ideas. One of the first things he emphasizes is self-reliance. He practically calls it like the holy grail of attracting women.
And he takes a step further by linking it to financial independence,
Right.
even claiming that men who live at home can't truly consider themselves men. It's a bold statement, and it definitely highlights a particular set of values that might not resonate with everyone.
It's like he's saying, before you even think about approaching a woman, you need to have your act together financially. It's an interesting perspective in today's world where, a lot of young people are struggling to achieve that kind of financial stability. What do you make of that connection between masculinity and financial independence?
It's a complex issue. On one hand, financial independence can provide a sense of security and confidence, which are attractive qualities. But on the other hand, tying masculinity so closely to financial success can create undue pressure and even shame for those who might be facing economic challenges.
So you're saying that while financial independence might be a goal, it shouldn't be the sole measure of a man's worth or his attractiveness?
Precisely. There are many other qualities that are just as important, if not more so, in attracting a partner.
He also dives into this concept of designing your consciousness,
Yeah.
which sounds pretty abstract.
Yeah, he's essentially advocating for taking control of your thoughts and beliefs, shaping your own reality rather than letting external influences dictate your life. He encourages readers to identify and challenge negative social conditioning or limiting beliefs that might be holding them back.
It's almost like he's saying you have the power to create the life you want, but you have to be willing to break free from anything that's holding you back.
Yeah, it's a powerful message.
Right,
But it also needs some unpacking.
right.
What are the practical steps involved in designing your consciousness? And is it really about rejecting all external influences? Or is there a balance to be struck between self-reliance and acknowledging the interconnectedness of our lives?
These are some great points. He doesn't just stop with the mental game, though. He also gets into the nitty-gritty of crafting a visually appealing image.
Right. He emphasizes the importance of projecting an attractive image, focusing on things like getting a stylish haircut, upgrading your wardrobe, and even liberating your bald spot, as he puts it.
It's interesting how he frames these suggestions. He's not saying you need to be a supermodel, but rather that you should put effort into presenting the best version of yourself.
I think for some, it might be motivating, encouraging them to take pride in their appearance. But for others, it might reinforce insecurities and feed into the pressure to conform to certain beauty standards.
It's tricky, right?
Yeah,
On one hand, I can see how taking care of your appearance can boost confidence and self-esteem. But on the other hand, I worry about the message it sends, especially to younger guys who might be struggling with body image issues.
it's about finding that balance between self-improvement and self-acceptance, which isn't always easy in a world that bombards us with images of ideal beauty.
Now, one area where a lot of people struggle, regardless of gender, is shyness. The author actually dedicates a whole section to overcoming shyness, and his approach is pretty unconventional.
Yeah, he advocates for becoming a puppet master of sorts,
Oh, okay.
focusing on the other person's emotions rather than your own discomfort. He wants you to project the confidence and ease you want to feel, almost like you're acting the part.
It's like he's saying, fake it till you make it, but with a focus on reading and responding to the other person's cues.
Right.
He even claims that confessing your nervousness can disarm the situation and actually make you feel calmer.
Interesting.
He shares an anecdote about using this technique in high school and later with a girl he met at a bar. And in both cases, he says it worked like a charm.
It's an interesting tactic,
Right?
and I could see how it might be effective in certain situations. It's almost like a form of exposure therapy, where you're intentionally confronting your fear in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
But the question is, does it really address the root cause of shyness?
That's a good question. Is it just a temporary fix, or does it lead to genuine and lasting change? And what about the role of authenticity in building genuine connections? Can you truly connect with someone if you're constantly putting on a performance?
These are important considerations, and they lead us to another key theme in the book, building charisma.
And according to the author, charisma can be cultivated through acts of kindness, generosity, and being a good listener. He talks about attracting a following of friends and potential romantic partners by creating a positive and supportive aura.
It's like he's saying, be the kind of person people want to be around, and the rest will follow. But there's a fine line between genuine charisma and calculated manipulation.
Right, it's one thing to be genuinely kind and caring, and it's another to use those qualities as a means to an end. It raises the question of intentionality. Are you being kind because it's who you are, or are you doing it to get something in return?
That's the crux of the issue. True charisma comes from a place of authenticity and genuine connection, not from a desire to manipulate or control others.
Which brings us to a section that's likely to spark some debate. His views on understanding women. He lays out 5 key points that he believes men need to grasp, and some of them are pretty provocative.
He starts by calling hotness a superpower and discusses its advantages and burdens for women. Then he delves into self-transcendence and claims that women have a higher capacity for it than men, which influences their relationships.
Okay.
He goes on to emphasize the importance of chemistry in attraction, and then discusses female honor and the importance of eye contact. It's quite a mix of ideas.
It's a lot to unpack, and I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here.
We are. And it's important to approach these claims with a critical eye. We'll need to delve into each of these points, examining the evidence and exploring alternative perspectives to get a more balanced understanding.
Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us.
We do. But that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. We're here to explore, to question, and to help you navigate these complex ideas with a critical and informed mind.
All right, let's keep going. There's a lot more to uncover in this book.
Now, getting back to those 5 key points about women, it's important to remember that this is just one perspective, and it's crucial to consider other viewpoints.
Yeah, let's take his idea of hotness as a superpower. He seems to be suggesting that attractive women have a certain advantage in life, but also face unique challenges.
Right. What are your thoughts on this?
It's true that physical attractiveness can open doors and create opportunities. However, it's also important to acknowledge the potential downsides.
Yeah.
Women are often judged solely on their appearance, and those deemed attractive can face objectification, unwanted attention, or even discrimination. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
He then talks about self-transcendence, claiming that women have a greater capacity for it than men. He doesn't really define what he means by this, but he seems to be suggesting that women are more naturally inclined towards spirituality and emotional depth.
I think it's important to avoid making sweeping generalizations about gender and spirituality. There's a lot of variation within genders, and attributing certain traits to one gender over another can perpetuate harmful stereotypes.
He then gets into this elusive concept of chemistry, which he admits is hard to define. He links it to social intelligence and the nice guy factor, but it's not entirely clear what he means by that. Chemistry is a complex interplay of factors, including shared values, physical attraction, emotional intelligence, and even situational context. It's that spark that ignites between two people, and it's often difficult to pinpoint exactly what creates it. While being kind and respectful is certainly important, it's not a guaranteed recipe for chemistry.
He also mentions female honor, which seems like a rather outdated concept.
It does, doesn't it? It's important to remember that language and societal norms have evolved significantly over time. Using terms like female honor can perpetuate traditional gender roles and expectations that no longer resonate with many people.
Right. It's important to be mindful of the language we use and to challenge outdated notions of gender and
That's
relationships.
absolutely.
Finally, he emphasizes the importance of eye contact in interactions with women, claiming that it conveys confidence and attraction.
Eye contact is definitely an important part of nonverbal communication, and it can convey a range of emotions, including interest, respect, and confidence. However, it's also important to be aware of cultural differences and personal boundaries. What feels comfortable for one person might feel intrusive or even threatening to another.
It's all about reading the situation and respecting individual preferences. Now, moving on from these broader concepts about women, the author gets into some very specific techniques for attracting them. He even includes an excerpt from a letter he received from a woman describing her ideal man.
It's interesting that he chooses to include this single perspective as representative of what women want.
It is. The woman in the letter emphasizes qualities like being casual, respectful, and confident in his intentions. It's a pretty straightforward list, but I wonder how universal these desires really are.
That's a crucial point. While these qualities are certainly desirable, it's important not to generalize from a single perspective. Women are not a monolithic group, and their desires and expectations vary widely. What's valuable here is the emphasis on open communication and mutual respect, which are foundational for any healthy relationship.
He then dives into conversation starters and techniques for approaching women. He stresses the importance of playful flirting, avoiding cheesy pickup lines, and being direct about your romantic interest. He even mentions specific techniques like the pull tag and the custom comment.
These techniques are worth examining closely, both for their effectiveness and their ethical implications.
Okay.
The pull tab, as he describes it, involves creating a false pretense to initiate a conversation, which can be seen as manipulative. The custom comment seems a bit more genuine.
Right.
He suggests making a specific and complimentary observation about a woman's appearance, style, or attitude as a way to show interest.
It's all about finding something specific and complimentary to say rather than resorting to generic flattery. But even with a genuine compliment, there's always the risk of crossing boundaries or making someone feel uncomfortable.
Right. It's important to be mindful of how your words and actions are perceived and to respect the other person's boundaries.
He then moves on to dating strategies, specifically what he calls the action date.
This is where he encourages men to think outside the box and create memorable experiences that go beyond the typical dinner and a movie date.
Right.
He suggests activities like scuba diving, motorcycle riding, or anything that creates a sense of excitement and adventure.
It's an interesting concept. He even advises against giving flowers or gifts on the first date, arguing that it can create an imbalance in the power dynamic.
That's definitely a departure from traditional dating etiquette, and it might not resonate with everyone.
Right.
While some women might appreciate the thoughtfulness of a gift, others might prefer a more experience-based date.
It all comes down to knowing your audience and reading the situation. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to dating.
Exactly. What matters most is being genuine, respectful, and attentive to the other person's cues.
Now, he also gets into a topic that's likely to raise some eyebrows: navigating female behavior and avoiding the dreaded friend zone.
This is where his perspective becomes particularly narrow and potentially problematic.
Okay.
He offers advice on decoding what he considers typical female behavior, including dealing with women he labels as flaky and employing strategies to escalate physical intimacy. He even suggests techniques like the resale phone call, which involves calling back after a date to reassert interest and keep the momentum going.
It's a very strategic approach to dating, almost like it's a game to be won.
And that's the problem. Reducing complex human interactions to a set of strategies can strip away the authenticity and empathy that are crucial for healthy relationships. It's also important to remember that everyone, regardless of gender, deserves to be treated with respect and understanding. Labeling women as inherently flaky or manipulative reinforces harmful stereotypes.
It's a good reminder that we should always be questioning these kinds of generalizations and looking for the nuances in individual behavior.
Absolutely.
Next, we get into a topic that's very central to the book's overall theme: creating sexual enchantment.
Here, the author delves into setting the mood for seduction, emphasizing the importance of environment, music, lighting, and even using compliments and sensual touch to build anticipation. He talks about turning off electronic devices to minimize distractions and really focusing on creating a seductive atmosphere.
It's almost like he's providing a blueprint for a romantic encounter.
And that's where we need to tread carefully. While setting the mood can enhance intimacy, it's crucial to ensure that all parties involved are comfortable and consenting. Creating a trance or manipulating someone into feeling a certain way crosses ethical boundaries. Respect and open communication are paramount in any sexual relationship.
That leads us to a particularly striking anecdote he shares about encountering a woman he refers to as a butterface at the gym.
This anecdote is quite revealing, both in the language he uses and the perspective he presents.
Right.
He talks about how he used the power of yes to transform the situation into a romantic encounter, implying that being open-minded and stepping outside your comfort zone can lead to unexpected connections.
It's jarring to hear him use such a derogatory term to describe a woman.
It is. It's a reminder that language matters.
Yeah.
Reducing someone's worth to their physical appearance and using objectifying language is never acceptable.
It all comes back to treating everyone with respect, regardless of their appearance.
Exactly.
He then shifts gears and discusses sexual compatibility, which he categorizes into different grades based on shared levels of sexual energy and willingness to experiment.
This framework oversimplifies the complexities of sexual compatibility. Reducing it to a grading system ignores the nuances of communication, emotional connection, shared values, and individual preferences that contribute to fulfilling sexual relationships.
It's another example of him trying to quantify something that's inherently subjective and personal.
Right. He also seems to prioritize a particular type of sexual experience, one that's adventurous and experimental, which might not resonate with everyone.
It's a good reminder that there's no right way to experience sexuality, and that compatibility is about finding someone who aligns with your values and desires.
Precise.
Towards the end of the book, he takes a bit of a philosophical turn, talking about the importance of maintaining a childlike sense of wonder and embracing new experiences throughout life. He connects this to staying engaged with popular culture to avoid being perceived as out of touch.
It's a valuable message, especially as we age.
Yeah.
Maintaining curiosity and a zest for life can be incredibly enriching. However, tying it to the need to fit in with popular culture feels a bit superficial.
It's interesting to see him promoting a sense of childlike wonder in a book that often feels very focused on control and strategy.
It does create a bit of a contradiction.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's his way of acknowledging the importance of spontaneity and letting go of rigid expectations, even within the framework he's created.
It's definitely something to think about.
It is.
He concludes the book by reflecting on the different phases of life and the inevitability of making choices that lead to both fulfillment and regret.
This is a powerful reflection, and it speaks to the universal human experience of navigating choices, accepting limitations, and finding meaning in the present moment.
Yeah.
He emphasizes the importance of taking ownership of your choices, rather than letting fear or fate dictate your path.
It's a poignant reminder that life is a journey with both highs and lows, and that embracing the full spectrum of experience is essential for growth.
And it brings us to the end of our deep dive into She's Yours for the Taking.
Wow, that was quite a journey. We covered a lot of ground, from self-reliance and overcoming social conditioning to dating strategies, creating a seductive atmosphere, and even some philosophical musings on life and choice.
We did. And as with any deep dive, it's crucial to approach the material with a critical and discerning mind. The author offers some intriguing ideas and techniques, but not all his advice is universally applicable or ethically sound.
It's interesting how he seems to grapple with this tension, between projecting that alpha male persona and wanting genuine intimacy and vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's like he almost admits that the whole tough guy act can be a barrier to real connection.
It's a struggle many men face. Society often pushes these narrow definitions of masculinity, and it can be tough to reconcile the need to win in the dating game with the desire for authentic relationships.
Yeah, it makes you think about the pressures men face and the masks we wear.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance between strength and vulnerability,
Right.
between pursuing your goals and being open to genuine connection.
He also brings up something that really resonated with me, this fear of losing his edge as he gets older. He even has this formula for calculating how many sexual partners a man should have based on his age.
It's an interesting way to frame aging in relationships. He seems to view an active dating life as essential for a man's well-being, which ties back to his emphasis on masculinity and sexual conquest.
Right.
But this perspective perpetuates stereotypes about men's needs and desires as they age.
It's like he's saying men need to constantly prove themselves romantically.
Yeah.
Which can be exhausting and ultimately unfulfilling.
It raises the question of what truly brings fulfillment in relationships. Is it about quantity or quality? Is it about pursuing new conquests, or is it about cultivating deep, meaningful connections?
Right.
These are questions worth considering, especially as we navigate different life stages.
So after diving deep into this book, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
It's important to remember that this book presents just one perspective. While the author offers some intriguing ideas, not all his advice is universally applicable or ethically sound.
It's a good reminder that we should always be questioning what we read and hear, especially when it comes to advice on relationships and personal growth.
Absolutely. And remember, what works for one person might not work for another. There's no magic formula for attracting a partner or finding fulfillment in relationships.
It's about finding what resonates with you,
Exactly.
what aligns with your values and goals, and what feels authentic.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to challenge conventional wisdom and explore different perspectives. Keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep growing.
Beautifully said. That's a perfect note to end on. To all our listeners out there, stay curious, keep those conversations flowing, and until next time, happy deep diving.